Odisha was created in 1936, and so in 2036 is a very, very important milestone for us, and we want to achieve a lot to make it Odisha of our dreams. In this vision document, our basic premise are three. One, like any other state, we want Odisha to have a more number of ports, more infrastructure, more airports, more flights, more industries, basically a lot of prosperity. But along with that, the second pillar is wellness. We want our people to be well, to be fit, and nutrition levels to be high. So that is another very important pillar. And the third pillar, which becomes very important in the Odisha context, is equity, where we want geographical equity across regions of Odisha. We want people to prosper, we want people to have the best of health, but also social equity and economic equity. The cross-cutting themes in this vision document that we will be coming out with, apart from special chapters on industrialization, on corridors, on how we want to use urbanization as the engine of growth, we also have some cross-cutting themes. And those cross-cutting themes are the resilience to climate changes that are going to take place in the next 22 years, women's empowerment, which will continue to be a very big driving force, governance reforms to be able to achieve all that we are envisioning, basically ensuring ease of living. And another very important thing for us is how we will engage with the community, how the community will contribute to this vision. And two immediate examples that come to mind are, one, the diaspora sitting here, how they are contributing to the development of the country, of their respective states, and that type of contribution. And the other is that when we were making this document, we started a portal which was open to all the citizens, all the Odias and all others who have love for Odisha in their hearts, and we got 3,22,000 responses to contribute to this document that we are making. So we want more and more engagement from the citizens. So that will be another very, very important part of our vision for Odisha. The state, ladies and gentlemen, has already transitioned from a low-income state. You may remember it used to be clubbed with the Bimaru states. No longer. We are already a medium income state, but our aspiration is to become a high income state. We have been doing a lot of things. Just to give you an example, this is a state which has organized 2 World Hockey Cup finals, and the whole entire World Cup hockey was held here in Odisha, not once but 2 times, not only in Bhubaneswar but also in Rourkela, where we built the largest stadium of the world, largest hockey stadium of the world in only 15 months. So when we set our mind to it, we always do things. And what we are now looking at is how to grow our economy, which at present is a $100 billion economy, how we will take it to $500 billion by 2036, and eventually 1.5 trillion. I know it's a tall order, but that by 2047. And in doing that, we have a lot of ideas, and you must be very intrigued by the kind of panel we have, the different types of people in this panel. We have the Deputy Chief Minister, who will be talking to us about the new government's vision for this, and he will be talking from his very, very long years of experience in this. And we have an economist, we have a skills specialist, We have somebody from biotechnology, a young leader. We have a sports icon who has been working very extensively with the state government. We have Paradeep Port Authority Chairman who will be talking to us about port-led development, which for a state like Odisha, which has a long coastline of 480 kilometers, this is a thing which we have identified as a means of moving ahead. And so we are really looking forward to this discussion. So we will be starting our discussion, and I will be requesting Dr. Deepak Mishra, who is the Director and Chief Executive of the Indian Council for Research and International Economic Relations, ICRIER. He is incidentally born in Odisha, and we will be requesting Dr. Mishra to tell us how the state economy can be taken further. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be part of this 18th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Many thanks to Development Commissioner Ms. Garg for inviting me. Let me begin with His Excellency Shri Kanak Bardhan Singh Deo, Deputy Chief Minister, Government of Odisha, my fellow panelists, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the diaspora community. Somebody should stop this noise. I don't know what's happening. But anyway, let me go. So I'm going to talk to you about how do we leverage the diaspora for talent, for ideas, and as role models in a quest for Viksit Odisha. I'll begin my presentation with a chart which is one of the most cited chart in the economic literature because it captures 2,000 years of economic history in one chart. It tells you the fluctuating economic fortunes of countries across 2,000 years. So on the x-axis, if you can see the picture on your screen, it starts with 1 AD. That's the start of the modern system. Which country contributed how much to global GDP in which year? This graph was not made by me or an Indian economist. This was done by two very prominent, famous American economists. And what you see in this graph, it shows that two countries, India and China, were the most prosperous and developed country in the world for 1800 years. Only in the last 300 years that India and China became much poorer, and amazingly 40% of the global GDP came from India. Fast forward to 1947, by the time India became independent, that 40% has become 4%. So out of every 100 rupees, India used to produce 40% at its peak, which became 4% or 4 rupees out of 100. The post-independence period, it was no good. 50s, 60s, 70s, India continued to languish and grow at a very slow pace. Only after the 91 liberalization that you see India starts to grow again and its share starts to slowly expand. So the question before this house is, can India restore its preeminent position in the global economic order by 2047, which is when we want to produce at least 20 to 25% of global GDP coming out of India? Is that possible? If you go by the economic performance of India over the last 30 years, it's a very eminent goal that we can achieve. Because what it shows is, you see the growth rate that India contributes to the global growth rate has constantly increased over the last 40 years. We are at 4% in the 1980s, we went to 5, 7, 10. Now we are contributing 12% of the global growth every year. So you can imagine if this good streak continues, we could easily come to 20, 25% of the global growth contribution. But this is not going to be automatic. This is not going to be assured. We have to work hard for it, and we have to do good policies, but this is within the grasp of India. What about Odisha? Ladies and gentlemen, Odisha is a standout in India's success story. That's because if India is outperforming the world, Odisha is outperforming India. So the picture on the left shows you what was Odisha contribution to India GDP in 1981. That was 3.7%. Over 20 years, it went on a secular decline, and we hit the rock bottom around early 2000 at 2.3%. Since then, Odisha has been on an upswing. Now we are close to 3 to 3.5%, the growth in the share that we had in 1981. And if this trend continues, Odisha should get to 5% of national GDP by 2036, which is the 100 years of centenary for Odisha. What does 6% mean or 5% mean? If you look at the picture on the right, that means Odisha will have a GDP close to $600 billion. That looks like a big number given that we are at 115 billion in 2024. It means Odisha will be 6 times larger over the next 14 years. Is that possible? Again, if you look back, Odisha has grown 10 times between 1999 and 2024. So again, it's within our grasp, but we need to do the right policies to get there. And Odisha is very well positioned for success for the following reasons. I'm just going to selectively quote few indicators just to show you. First thing, many of you may not know that Odisha is one of the most industrialized states in the country after Gujarat. Odisha's industry accounts for 43% of GDP compared to 28% for all India. Similarly, the labor force participation rate among women in Odisha is much, much higher than what you see in India. And this is very important. 3% of women in the age group of 15 to 65 are in the labor force in Odisha compared to only 28 in India. And take it from me that states which are going to have more women in the labor force are going to attract more industry, are going to grow more faster, and are going to experience more inclusive growth in the next 2 decades, and Odisha is very well positioned for it. Third is, again, a big news that I'm sure many of you will know. Despite all this infrastructure investment that you see, Odisha is the least indebted state government in the country today, with only 16% of debt to GDP compared to 28% for the rest of India. It's even better than Maharashtra and Gujarat. And then when it comes to poverty, despite having per capita income below national average, Odisha poverty and multidimensional index is similar to all India. So Odisha is very well positioned to take advantage of its good endowment. But is this enough? Can these things catapult Odisha to $600 billion economy in 2036? Ladies and gentlemen, my view is not. Why not? So what else Odisha needs to do? I could give you a lot more numbers and equations and graphs and data to tell that. Instead, I'll give you 3 stories. What should Odisha need to do to get to its aspiration? And I'll end up with one suggestion. The first story is the economic history that I studied when I went to school in Odisha. So most economic history book in Odisha in the 1970s started this very dramatic statement saying Odisha is rich, but its people are poor. That was the narrative that I grew up going to the school and listening to my teachers. Fast forward to 2020 or current years, Odisas are no more poor. In fact, Odisas are very powerful. They're smart, they're intelligent, they're taking over, India and the rest of the world. And this is just a few diaspora from Odisha who are in corridors of power in Delhi. But imagine the rich diaspora, the network, the smart diasporas of India who are scattered across the whole world. And out of that, many Odias are doing extremely well. Whether you go to Middle East, you go to North America, you'll be very surprised to see the vibrant Odia community over there. So the first idea I want to leave it with, how do we leverage diaspora for the talent? The second story comes from Vietnam. So the second story comes from Vietnam. I was a country economist for the World Bank posted in Hanoi office. So one day I got a call from a People's Committee, thank you so much, People's Committee chairman from a province called Thanh Hoa. And Thanh Hoa is a small, tiny province in Vietnam. Vietnam has 62 provinces. So it's like a small district in Odisha. Think of Baleswar. So this Thanh Hoa People's Committee chair, which is like the equivalent to, district collector or the chief minister of that state, calls and says, "Can you come to my office? I want to have an important discussion with you." I showed up in an office, which is about 100 kilometers from Hanoi, and he said, "Look, last month, the national government had authorized to set up a refinery in Thanh Hoa. And I want to understand the economics of refinery, and I want you to help me to set up a study tour to Jamnagar in Gujarat." I was just, taken aback that how did he know about Jamnagar in Gujarat? And on the way, he said, "By the way, I also heard that they have a very dynamic chief minister. Can you set up a meeting with me so that I can learn from him?" I mean, imagine a district collector in a small district in Baleswar having the knowledge about which is the place which is the best refinery in the world. How do I learn the economics of refinery so that I can prepare my state for it? So he wanted to know the upstream activities of the refinery, the downstream activities, the people kind of thing they have to do, the land they have to acquire, the new things that they can create with the refineries. All those things he wanted to know, and he had done his homework to know that he wanted to come to Jamnagar. And he said, "Because you're Indian, you have connections, so I'm asking you to help me to set this up." That study tour did happen by the time I had left Vietnam, but just to give you that how much in East Asia, people start to think about collecting good ideas, and here the diaspora can be a big platform for Odisha policymakers to seek good ideas from the rest of the world. My third story comes from what I call making millions journey from Mayurbhanj to Maryland and back. And this is a very personal story. I was born in a place called Bethnoti in Mayurbhanj district. Until very recently, I did not know that almost all my formative years was spent around a national park called Simlipal. Some of you obviously in Odisha, they know, but the diasporas who don't know about Simlipal, you should certainly visit it. It's a terrific place. But what is funny was, for first 12 years of my life, I was born in Bethnoti, I was studying in Rairanpur, Jasipur, Biswai. These were my first 12 years of my life. And with me, there are hundreds and thousands of friends and students and family members who all studied there. And what was holding many of us back, as I look back, was our ambition. We did not have role model like the way people in Gujarat have. When you go to villages in Kutch and ask them, what do you want to become? They want to be a big industrialized like Dhirubhai Ambani. If you go to Hyderabad and ask kids, what do you want to be? They want to be Satya Nadella. The girls in Chennai wants to be Indra Nui and run Fortune 500 companies. In India, at least during my time, I was limited by the ambition, by entrepreneurship, and not having the role model. And I think the diaspora can be the perfect role model for the Odia youth. So this is the three ideas that, stories that I had. What the diasporas will offer: talent, ideas, and a source of being role model. What do they bring that we need for Odisha? We need greater capacity, both in government and in private sector. We need know-how, technologies, ideas, and we need to fire the youth with ambition and entrepreneurship. So my suggestion to the Deputy Chief Minister is, let's think of a SWAT or a crack team on diaspora and development. Let's strengthen the Prabasi Odiyas and Bharatiyas link to their Janmabhoomi. And some of you say, but where about the money? Because that's what the diasporas are good for. But take it from me, I was a diaspora for many years. Emotional bond trumps financial linkages anytime. So if you can establish those emotional links, you would be able to see the money coming through. But let's start with the heart and not with the pocket. With that, I have some very specific ideas, but I'm running out of time, so I leave it. But I'd like to have a discussion with the Deputy Commissioner about how do we take this idea forward. Thank you so much. And if you want to reach me, the best way to get me is through my LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepak. We will now be requesting Mr. Abhinav Bindra. I think all of us have heard of his name and we are very, very proud of him as the first Indian to win an individual gold medal at the Olympics in men's 10-meter air rifle event in 2008 Olympics, and many, many, many more awards after that. But ladies and gentlemen, what he's here to speak to us about is about what Odisha's vision for sports can be. Already there are a large number of things that we are doing with Abhinav Bindra Foundation, but I will let Mr. Bindra speak on that. Yes, as you wish. If you feel more comfortable like this.
Well, thank you very much, firstly, for having me on this panel. It goes to show that, the leadership, of course, nationally, but also in the state, really believes in the transformational power of sport. It's wonderful to be always back in Odisha, in Bhubaneswar, which I really think is the sporting capital of our country. The infrastructure here is magnificent, and just the interest for sport amongst the people has been absolutely wonderful to see. And also today, the greatest applause which we've heard so far is for sport. So I'm just very happy on that. I think sport can play a very, very important role in the further development of Odisha. I think Odisha has done very, very well to develop sport at the elite level, to give the youth of Odisha a lot of chances to become elite athletes. But going forward, I envision how sport can contribute in a larger way. I think sport can contribute to many, many areas in the vision document, ma'am, what you had just talked about. And I'd like to talk about a few elements on how sport can be play a very important role. I'll start with health. I think it is absolutely critical to make Odisha a healthy state. The people of Odisha have to be physically healthy, they have to be mentally healthy. And for that, I think sport can play a very, very important role. Physical inactivity levels are at all-time high, and that is something with the younger generation, with the youth, we're just seeing a very physically inactive generation. So here sport can really, really play a very meaningful role to make young kids get involved in sport, not just for winning in sport, not just for the glory of becoming champions, but just playing sport for the sheer joy of playing sport, for becoming healthier people, both physically and mentally. Physical inactivity is going to give rise to a larger number of non-communicable diseases, so the role of sport there can be absolutely massive. I'll talk about education. The role of sport is going to play a very, very important role, and we're already doing quite interesting work through the Olympic Values Education Program. What we'll see in the course of the next 10, 12 years is that there is going to be massive disruption also in education through artificial intelligence. We're already seeing that come through. But what AI will never be able to achieve is instill and imbibe values into young kids. And the role of sport there is going to be absolutely immense. There is no better activity than sport to build character in young people. Sport teaches us a thing or two about winning, but it also teaches us how to fail. It teaches us resilience. It teaches us teamwork and all the wonderful things that sport teaches us, and the values that young people can imbibe through sport will be invaluable life lessons to the young kids of this state. You talked about equality. I'll talk about something called gender equality. Through our programs in Odisha, we've managed to get many young girls to play sport, to just play sport for the sheer joy of playing sport. Many of them will become champions, most of them won't. But they will become a more confident people. They'll become more confident in whatever they want to do in life. So I think sport has the power to break a lot of glass ceilings. I'll give you a very small story and a very interesting story. When we started the Olympic Values Education Program here in Odisha, we noticed that girls in physical education classes in school would not venture out to play in classes, in those sports classes. So what we did was we changed the rules of the game and we made all our events mixed team in nature. So the girls were forced out to the playgrounds. Of course, the boys were a little bit grumpy the first week, but after the first week, they realized that the girls were really good. And one of the most beautiful things that happened was we recently did a sports tournament for these OWEP schools, 100 OWEP schools, and we did a football tournament, and you'll be surprised and happy to know that 64 of those 100 schools had girls leading those mixed teams. And it was most of the boys who actually made girls the captains. So sport really has that power to break glass ceilings, to bring in that role of equality. So sport there can play a very important role. About economy, I think, of course, hosting events, it attracts tourism, it attracts investment, and it can play a very important role in economy. But I'll go back to my earlier point that I was trying to make. We're also going to try and make Odisha and, of course, India a global workforce. But this global workforce also has to be a productive workforce. And they have to be a healthy workforce. And the role that sport can play there is going to be very, very meaningful. So just to end, I'd just like to say that there's great work happening in sport in Odisha. I acknowledge it as the sports capital of this country. But what I would really like to reinforce is that while you work on your vision documents and while you work on your policy going forward, I'd love to see sport more mainstream. So far, what we've seen, not just in Odisha, but across the country, that sport has grown in a silo. But what we can do is that we can mainstream sport in all these areas that we talked about, in health, in education, in urban development, to build community sporting infrastructure, to give young people across the state an opportunity to simply go out and play. And I'm sure if we will be able to achieve that and do that, sport will be a very meaningful contributor to the development of Odisha. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Abhinav. Actually, some time back when I had gone to a district, very remote district of Malkangiri, so there in a tribal hostel for girls, I asked those girls, if there's one thing that you would want to ask me as a state government representative that you want to have very desperately, I thought they will say we want a television or we want a library or we want this or that, but they said we want to play hockey. So there in a remote district, there were girls who wanted to play hockey only because the state has really taken up the cause of hockey. Thank you very much, Abhinav. And we will now be requesting Mr. Bruce Poe. Mr. Bruce Poe is the Chief Skills Officer at World Skills Center here. And he has been the former CEO of ITEES in Singapore and has his MBA from NUS. He has been helping us in taking the skills story ahead. And today we will request him to tell us what the skill ecosystem should look like in Odisha by 2036 and maybe then by 2047. Mr. Bruce Poe.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, Sri Kanat Vadan Singh Deo, distinguished guests, participants. It's an honor for me to be here to speak to you about skills development and training. Now, when we talk about economic development of a country or a state, inevitably you will talk about the need for skills manpower. So skills manpower is very important and integral to the economic development of a country or a state. I come from, in my earlier working life, working for the Singapore Economic Development Board. And it's interesting to note that in the Economic Development Board at that time, there's a manpower development division, which I belongs to. And what does the Manpower Development Division in EDB does in Singapore, simply to train the manpower that is needed for the kind of FDI, foreign direct investment, needed for Singapore. And we are talking about cutting edge kind of skills and technology needed at that time. And we have many training centers, training institutions cater to develop excellent skilled manpower for the needs of the industry of the day. And what does it require? It requires you to, in a way, forecast what are the skills that's needed with the industry that you need to attract to establish in the particular, for that matter, Singapore. And similarly, I think for Odisha, you need to look at that kind of perspective. So in Singapore, you have this very, I would say, pursuit for the type of skills that is relevant to the industry. So you got to actually know the pulse of industry and what are the type of manpower needed for industry. I can remember, as a young officer, I have to visit industry like, 2 times a week at least, while I'm doing, skills, manpower, and training. And it's important that we don't lose sight of what the industry do. And moving forward to, 2024, 2025 and beyond, you can see that the pace of change in the industry is gathering speed. So the notion of, change is a constant is even invalid, because it's the acceleration of the industry, need for change in technology and so on, that the skills need to keep up to that kind of speed, which means that inevitably you need to train the trainers to keep up the speed of this industry change. And it's important to have an ecosystem within your training ecosystem to provide training for your teachers so that they can keep up the pace with industry. And I can say that the half-life of knowledge in the skills area is getting shorter and shorter because industry is moving faster and faster. So that's a big challenge in itself. So in Odisha, we have partnered with the Odisha Skills Development Authority to set up the World Skills Center. And we have developed, in trades, in the manufacturing area, in the facility management, and also the hospitality area. And going forward, we are looking at a new skills area, areas where if you want to go into manufacturing, you are talking about global skills. The standards should be on par with what the world demands, because you are manufacturing for the world. Singapore has gone through the stage in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And similarly, I think Odisha, with all the investment coming in, will also need that kind of planning for the skills that's needed in the future. So going forward, we are looking at new skills in area of IT-enabled services, semiconductor manufacturing, even AI applications, and many more, other areas that is of, importance to Odisha. And Odisha is training for the world, besides, training for the state itself. So you must make sure that you are plugged into what the world requires in terms of skilled manpower. In Singapore, we like to do things in a very, orderly fashion. When you want to transform the industry in Singapore, we have a very high-level committee called the Committee of Future Economy. And they come out with a report after many months and years of deliberation, including, inputs from the industries. We come up with what we call 23 industry transformation maps. And each sector of the industry is targeted and what is needed to transform the industry itself so that you can keep pace with what are the changes in the world and maybe keep in the forefront of that particular sector. And inevitably, if you look down, the next stage, what are the skills required to tackle some of this industry transformation? You find that one common thread is digitalization. Digitalization will impact all the 23 kind of sectors that we have in Singapore. And over here, it will be the same thing. Having said that, with the generative AI coming on board, there's also a need that, various sectors need to have AI applications incorporated in the skills areas. So these are areas that will inevitably come upon you. If you don't transform, you will just, fade away. So in your skilling, you must always be cognizant of what the industry needs and wants, and what is the next step, and prepare your institution, particularly your trainers, to be able to keep up to pace with what the industry wants. So in short, the future of, or the next phase of the World Skills Center will be looking at some of the skills area, and we are going to look at skilling not just in Budamaneshwar, but all the other districts of Odisha as well. And we are looking at, for example, zonal ITIs, what can be, the training, programs in those areas. And there are so many areas that we can think of. And eventually, it's the youth that will be benefiting from this. And the youth are looking for not only jobs, but jobs that will pay well. So hopefully, we can put our act together, and maybe with the participation of the diaspora here, with contribution, as particularly, partnership with industry is very critical in our skilling efforts. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Poe. And actually, when we were thinking of the vision for skills, we were thinking of the tagline, skilled in Odisha, skilling for the world. So we are now thinking how our boys and girls can get skilled enough to go to all parts of the world. And with that, I would now like to request Dr. Rachis Ella. Dr. Ella is the Chief Development Officer at Bharat Biotech, based in Hyderabad. And though he is a clinician by profession, but he is also heading Bharat Biotech as its Chief Development Officer, and has a strong background in biotechnology. And that is something on which we would like him to speak, how we can grow in this specialized area of biotechnology. Dr. Ella.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. I hope I'm audible. I think before I start off, I would like to probably explain to you the difference between biotechnology and pharmaceuticals. You're probably very much aware of what pharmaceuticals are. So those are small molecules. Those are tablets that you take or injectables that you take, which are very small molecules. Biotechnology is a culmination of various sciences to engineer cells to express a protein of desired interest. You were essentially making therapeutics, vaccines, or gene therapies that are liquid biologics that can either cure cancer or prevent an infectious disease. So you can understand there's a fair amount of sophistication in biotechnology. That being said, I work for a company by the name of Bharat Biotech. For those of you who are in Bhubaneswar, you probably received a vaccine that we manufactured by the name of Covaxin. We've also manufactured several other vaccines for children and infants. Approximately 1 out of 3 children born in this world receive a vaccine manufactured at our 3 facilities in Hyderabad, Gujarat, and Bhubaneswar as well. We're recently commissioning our flagship manufacturing facility here, north of Daspur in an 8-acre facility that I'll be talking to you a little bit more about. And our philosophy, at least in the biotech sector, at least for Bharat, is our vision is to develop global South solutions for global South diseases. In the pandemic or in other circumstances when you have outbreaks, you really can't rely on multinationals to come and service a country the size of India. It's very important for India to be self-reliant and also Odisha to be self-reliant as well. And with that vision, we decided to venture into this space of vaccines and to innovate in this world as well. We're the first developers of a few novel vaccines that is based on our own intellectual property and based on our own clinical data as well. These vaccines do take anywhere between 5 years to 15 years to come to fruition, and we've been doing that successfully well. And I think through our interactions with the state of Odisha, they've been extremely long vision. I would say that the vision is primarily to foster an industry of biotechnology in Odisha, not a pharmaceutical industry, but primarily a biotechnology industry, which is even more, which actually I'll have to go to Dr. Poe to get some advice on skill training. But the new policies from the state, the Science and Technology Department are extremely encouraging. For those of you who are in the life sciences and biotechnology sector, I encourage you to produce those documents. Some of the subsidies, some of the CapEx investments are extremely lucrative to attract talent and also foster such innovation and investments as well. Lastly, I would just like to point out that though our plan is to make Global South solutions for Global South diseases, we'd also like to make therapeutics and vaccines from Odisha for the Global South. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ella. And we are very, very thankful to you for Covaxin and for saving so many lives. The next panelist is Mr. P.L. Haranag. He is the chairperson of Paradeep Port Authority, an officer of IRTS, the Indian Railway Traffic Service, has long years of experience in logistics and transportation. And we in Odisha want to see port-led development, and what better person than Mr. Haranag to tell us how Paradeep Port itself is going to transform itself and how further we can go for port-led development.
Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Odisha, Honorable Madam, the Developmental Commissioner, the esteemed co-panelists, and the erudite audience, good evening to all of you. As you all know that the Indian economy is rapidly progressing. It is going to touch 7 trillion economy mark by 2030 and more than 30 trillion economy mark by 2047 under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji. Normally, the Indian ports growth rate versus the GDP growth rate is normally in the range of 1.1x to 1.5x. That means if the GDP grows at 1, then normally 1.1 rate, the Indian ports grow. Even if you consider that the port growth is 1x of the GDP growth, the current volumes which are handling at the Indian ports today is 1600, less than 1600, 1540 million tons, will go up to 2400 million tons by 2030. That means in a span of about 6 years, we are required to handle about more than 800 million tons at our ports. So the need of the hour is to expand the capacity so that the real potential of this EXIM traffic will be realized by the Indian economy. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has announced a maritime vision, he has unveiled at Mumbai last year. As per the vision, the Indian port capacity from the existing 2600 million tons is expected to go up to 10,000 million tons by 2047. Coming to Odisha, Odisha is a state which is mineral rich, known for its highest level of ease of doing business and facilitation to the investments and low power tariffs and all that. We have 3 ports in Odisha as on date. The Paradip is the major port and Dhamra and Gopalpur are the non-major ports. And another 12 non-major ports are under development. And though the Odisha has a coastline of about 6% of the total coastline of India, the EXIM traffic handled at Odisha ports is last year is a 13% of the total EXIM traffic handled by the India. That means a huge, it is almost double than its capacity it has been able to do it. Then last year, the total exports worth of about $12 billion have been exported from the state of Odisha. That is the standard of Odisha. Last year, all the 3 ports put together, we handled about 200 million tons. The Paradip has emerged as the #1 major port of the country with 145 million tons. And the other Dhamra and Gopalpur have done the rest. Out of these 200 million tons, we handle 85% coal, crude, iron ore only. Now, the Paradip port, I will talk about little bit specific about the Paradip port because it is the major port in the state of Odisha. We are taking a number of steps towards the path of Vikasit Bharat as well as the Vikasit Odisha. The first one, as I told, that we are required to expand our capacities at the ports, failing which we will not be able to handle our EXIM traffic which will be offered in the next 5-6 years by the economy. We are on the spree of massive expansion. Today, the Paradip port is about 289 to 290 million ton capacity. It will increase to 400 million tons by 2030 and 500 million tons by 2047. This will be the first port in India to cross the 500 million ton capacity mark. And apart from that, we are also equipping these beds with the most state-of-art machinery. Today, the Paradip port is the port with the highest productivity among all the Indian ports. We handle more than 33,000 tons per bed, per vessel per day, which is highest. We want to take it to 50,000 tons, so we want to put the most state-of-art of machinery at all the beds. And second important thing in any port is so that the draft is nothing but the depth to which a loaded vessel sinks. So if the harbor is deeper, and automatically the higher draft vessels can be brought in. Higher draft means higher volumes it can bring. So today the Paradip port is 16-meter draft vessels only can come. That means vessels with 1 to 1.5 lakh tons of cargo only can come. Now in a couple of years, less than a couple of years, already project is on, we will make the Paradip port Cape compliant. That means the draft will be increased to 18.5 meters, which means the biggest vessels which carry 2.5 lakh tons, 3 lakh tons of cargo in a single vessel can come and can be handled at the port. Because of the economies of scale, the scale of economy, so the logistic cost will come down substantially once you bring the bigger vessels. So all the industrialists, all the exporters and importers of the Odisha will get hugely benefited by this increase in the draft. It is estimated that $10 to $12 per ton will be reduced, which is a substantial amount for the exporters and importers with the increase in the draft. The third important step which we are taking as a part of the Vikasit Odisha and Vikasit Bharat is the port-led industrialization. Now, gone are the days when we used to keep, earlier what we are doing is we were developing the ports closer to the industrial area. Now we are trying to bring the industries closer to the ports. The port-led industrialization is the important arm of the Sagarmala that has been launched by the government of India. As a part of the Sagarmala program, already we have allotted almost 5-6 players, almost 800 acres of our limited land has been allotted to tank farms, to pellet plants, to multimodal logistic farms, for CFSs, to cater the container traffic. Almost 9,000 crores of investment is expected to come next 3 to 4 years, and which will give us 50 million tons of captive cargo for the Paradip. Port-led industrialization, the industries will become captive to the port. It is a win-win situation. They will get lesser logistic cost, and I will get the cargo captive. The fourth important step which we are taking is the cargo diversification. Traditionally, the ports of Odisha were concentrating on coal, iron ore and crude. These are the only three cargoes which constitutes 85 to 95% of the port traffic. But we have a lot of other cargo which is getting diverted to the ports of other states. In the process, they are incurring huge logistic costs. Some of the industries are spending about 50 to 60 crores additional logistic costs, and which is then they have become globally incompetitive. So, government of Odisha has supported as the first of its kind. No other state has done this kind of initiative. No maritime state. Odisha government has given VGF and for attracting the container liners traffic. Because the container liners were not coming to Paradip. Anyhow, they were getting the cargo either at Kolkata port or Visakhapatnam port. But the logistic cost of the exporters is going up highly. So they wanted about at least 250 minimum containers should be available for each call. So in the initial periods, it will be very difficult to get 250 minimum containers for each call. That's where government of Odisha has forwarded an expression of interest. It has clarified that any shortfall in the minimum guaranteed slots, so $200 per slot will be compensated so that you start your calls. So the MSC, RCL, all these container liners have started coming here. Now I think MSC doesn't require any more VGF. It is getting 500 to 600 to use in each call. So really the government of Odisha initiative is very laudable. Next, the important thing we are taking is the connectivity. The ports cannot function in isolation. It has to be connected to the hinterland, failing which the aggregation of cargo to the ports from the industries, evacuation of the cargo from the port to the industries, and will not happen just in time. Today, we have come to a where entire cargo movement has to take place just in time. So, in the Gati Shakti program, which is launched by the Honorable Prime Minister, 28 port connectivity projects, 22 projects railways, and 6 projects, road projects have been already been made part of this Gati Shakti program. Out of these 28 projects are already completed, rest are under either implementation or development. Then another important thing which we are doing is, we want to develop the waterways. Odisha is blessed with waterways. Brahmani River, National Waterway number 5, Mahanadi River, National Waterway number 64. And these waterways are not utilized for transportation of cargo. So now an SPV has been formed with the government of Odisha and Paradip Port, Inland Waterway Authority and Coal India. We come together to develop the National Waterway number 5, the Brahmani River first, which will connect Talcher to Paradip as well as the Dhamra ports. This will be a game changer because the cost of transportation by waterways is substantially lower than railways and roadways. Then another important initiative we have come out with is the shipbuilding and ship repair cluster. In fact, today the world has a 150 billion global market for shipbuilding and ship repair. In the entire world, which is dominated by China, South Korea and Japan, the entire tonnage capacity of shipbuilding is about 64 million gross tonnage. Out of which, today, what is the Indian shipbuilding capacity? 0.1. So we are at the lowest bottom. We are ranked at 22nd in the entire list of the shipbuilding capacity. So there is a huge potential. In fact, Indian ships, normally the life of a ship is 20 years. 20 years, after 20 years it has to be scrapped. So already 45% of the Indian owned vessels have crossed 20 years. So we require appropriate shipbuilding and ship repair center. Government of Odisha and Paradip Port have come together to develop shipbuilding cluster in the Kendrapara district, and with the allotment of land we will be developing very soon, maybe in a year or two, and it will, in fact, the shipbuilding cluster will generate a huge employment. And if the employment multiplier is 6.4x, that means if one person is a core employee, 6.4 additional ancillary employment will be generated. The last I will say, and I will close it, that is the green hydrogen and green ammonia hub. So now today, Paradip is one of the 3 hubs which have been declared by government for export and bunkering of the green hydrogen and green ammonia. Here also I must thank the government of Odisha, which has come forward to allot land for the green hydrogen and green ammonia producers closer to the Paradip port, where they will produce and they will handle for export and bunkering purposes to Paradip port. Paradip port is coming out with an exclusive and green hydrogen, green ammonia berth. So with these things I will just close, and the Paradip, which is the which will continue to play the pivotal role in the growth of the economy and the Vikasit Odisha's concept. And we want to mechanize ourselves 100%, increase the productivity, diversify the cargo profile, and we want to emerge at the biggest major port of the country, which is also a smart port and also green port. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arnad. And this is for Paradeep only, and we are planning so many big things for the other ports as well. May I now request Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Odisha, Mr. K.V. Singh Deo, to deliver the address.
Jai Jagannath. Development Commissioner, Additional Chief Secretary Odisha, Mrs. Annu Garg, distinguished panelists, Dr. Deepak Mishra, Director and CEO, Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, Mr. Abhinav Bindra, Padam Bhushan, Olympic gold medalist, founder of Abhinav Bindra Foundation, Mr. Bruce Poe, Chief Skill Officer, World Skill Center, Odisha, Dr. Richa Sela, Chief Development Officer, Bharat Biotech, Mr. P.L. Harannath, Chairperson, Paradeep Port Authority, all the dignitaries of the dais and our beloved diaspora. First and foremost, on behalf of the government of Odisha, I would like to welcome all of you to the land of Lord Jagannath and participating in this 3-day Viksit Odisha, the road ahead. I've been here since the morning and listening to all the panelists who have been on the dais earlier and the panelists here right now too. I couldn't agree more with Dr. Deepak Mishra when he pointed out that till 1999, the development or the graph of development in Odisha was minuscule. I would like to mention here that till 1999, there used to be something called a freight subsidy. And because of the freight subsidy, all the ore, Odisha, everybody's been speaking about the wealth of Odisha is in all the mineral ores that Odisha has. But we were allowing the ore to be taken out to Punjab, Haryana, all the foundries were there, but nobody was setting up base in Odisha. Even Tatas, they set up their industry in Jamshedpur, but they would take the ore from Odisha. It is when the freight subsidy was withdrawn in 1999 and when the government came out with the industrial policy resolution in 2001, we inserted a clause there that anybody who wants any form of ore from Odisha, they have to set up base in Odisha, and there started the development process in the state. Friends, Odisha has the longest coastline. Everybody's been talking about that. In the previous session, I was listening to Mr. Amitabh Kant. I was sitting at the back and hearing him. He was talking about the kind of development in the tourism sector that should take place. He was mentioning that people are not looking for five-star hotels. I agree wholeheartedly with him that people do not want five-star hotels. They need a clean room to sleep in, and they need a clean toilet and services, and they don't need European food to be served to them. They would be more than happy to consume your local cuisines. We need to, if we look at the last year's, the current year's financial budget and the speech which was made by the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji in the Parliament, she had talked about heritage tourism being developed. She had talked about wildlife tourism to be developed, and we have everything here to offer to the people, but we have not tried to tap those. We should, I remember, I would go back to 2006. I was speaking earlier to Abhinav. Sometime back in 2006, he would know Mr. Bernie Ecclestone, who used to run Formula One. Bernie Ecclestone had come to Odisha to look at motor sports, Formula One sports to be started here, because all he needed a port to bring bring the boats in, and he said, we want tented accommodation for the participants who come from all over the world. And the amount of foreign exchange that we could have earned at that point of time, we've got all these long reservoirs where you need only 1 kilometer length stretch of a straight run where these boats can be raced. But somewhere the thought process at that time was something different, but definitely we can develop water sports. We have the longest coastline, like I said, and we can have not less than 100 Goas, because 490 kilometers of coastline, you can have various tourist spots developed, and you don't have to have high-end tourism development. You can have low-level tourism development. Sometime back, everybody would recall a photograph that was posted by the Honorable Prime Minister on his X. And everybody was wondering where this is. And it was only a part of India where he had taken a photograph and posted. We have so many beautiful places to offer to the people of the world. And why can't Odisha develop those areas? We have a lovely Buddhist circuit. Buddhist circuit should be developed. Japanese tourists spend more to go and play golf in Australia, because to play on the greens in Japan, it is more expensive than to fly to Australia and play golf. So if we develop more golf courses in the state of Odisha, we could get more tourists coming in. But for that, again, what Dr. Jaishankar was speaking of in the morning, we need to develop connectivity. When I say connectivity, it has to be air connectivity. And it has to be affordable air connectivity. You can't have, that is something that will have to be taken up with Government of India. Mr. Arnath was talking about the development of the ports, because ports is what will get you a lot of cargo, and you have your container movement and everything. But I am a firm believer, Odisha can steal a march over all landlocked states, because movement of cargo, any produce or product which is finished by any of the industries in the state of Odisha can be moved quicker through the sea route rather than through the land route. So Odisha is much better positioned than, let's say, for example, Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, which have similar situations of ore and other things. And you talked about Janmabhoomi. This is all of us, this is our Janmabhoomi. We have to give back to our Janmabhoomi something at least. When Mr. Arnad was talking about Kendrapada and development of the port there, he's smiling, and I have a merchant Navy MLA also sitting in front. He's also very happy because then his evacuation out would be also quicker. I would like to appeal to all of you in the audience, the entire diaspora who is here today for this 3-day conclave. Please look at Odisha. We are here. Government's job is not to set up industries. Government's job is not to create industries. Government's job is to create the infrastructure and environment for investments to come in, and we are here to facilitate each and every part of that. And we assure you, I assure you on behalf, we have a very conducive bureaucracy also who will show you the right path and move the state ahead, because we want the state to grow along with you and your investment to grow, and we will handhold you in whatever way you require. The other issue that I need to point out here, my finance secretary is smiling from there. I would like to point out one thing here, that the cheapest electricity tariff that you can get today is in Odisha. Recently, Andhra Pradesh has come out with an energy policy. And I met some investors in Delhi during my last visit to Delhi, and they told me, all that they have promised is more Odisha-centric. They can't give what they have promised. So we are not, we went to Chandrababu ji when he has called, so we did go there, but we are looking at Odisha seriously. Friends, the Prime Minister's vision of $5 billion US economy by 2036 and $1.5 trillion US dollar economy by 2047 is what we are working towards. We are also wanting to increase the per capita income to 28,000. We intend to create more than 12 million additional jobs in the manufacturing and service sector by 2047. Odisha, I have already mentioned, has all kinds of mineral ore available, and we are ranked number 1 as far as chromite, bauxite, iron ore and manganese ore is concerned. We have many big giants, industrial giants who have come and invested in Odisha, not because of any other thing, because we have a conducive work culture and we have adequate forces available to be employed and engaged by the industries. I would like to also mention here, our goal is to increase the contribution of our service sectors to over 49% of the economy by 2047 from the present 36%. To achieve this objective, we will set up a financial technology and knowledge fintech city in Bhubaneswar, state-of-the-art global capability center, and a network of data centers in Odisha. We aim to make Odisha a leading chip design and manufacturing hub in India and contribute to the objectives of the India semiconductor mission. By 2047, Odisha aims to increase its contribution to India's energy future by becoming one of the top 5 states for energy exports, serving as a supply hub for southern and eastern. At least 33% green industrial power consumption, 50% green electrification and agriculture, and 100% digitization of power ecosystem. I would like to point out over here, we want to have organic farming in the state, because organic farming gives us better health. I'm sure Mr. Mr. Rachel Ila will agree with me that we need to feed our people, our society, our people in the country, organic food, because that will keep our health, keep us healthier, and we will not have to, pardon me for saying this, you're setting up your unit here, but we would definitely want a healthier society. We don't want to be living on medicines only, because health is something that we all need, a good health system. In the earlier session, women-led development was being talked about. Abhinav has spoken about the sports infrastructure, and so has Anu spoken about the health, the sports infrastructure which has been developed in the state. There's still a lot to be done. We have miles to go. And there are one or two points which were missed out as far as the sports issue was concerned. Odisha has become the sponsor for the national Kho-Kho team, as well as the women's hockey team. And I'm sure Kho-Kho is a sport which only needs two pillars, and you need the players, and it can be developed in each and every village of Odisha. And we would like people to be engaged in sporting activities, to be able to stay fit. I thank you all once again for being here amongst us in Odisha and wanting to be a part of the development of not only Odisha and the dream of the Honorable Prime Minister when he speaks about Purvodaya. India's development depends on the Purvodaya, meaning the Eastern India needs to develop to make Odisha Viksit, to make India Viksit, and with Viksit Bharat, Viksit Odisha. Thank you all once again. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Utkal Janani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. A big round of applause. Masterpiece of advices, and definitely we are working on it continuously, and we need your support, all the esteemed diasporas, all the industry leaders present over here. Moving ahead, we also indebted to our moderator, Madam Anu Garg, for conducting the discussion in a smooth way, and to all our esteemed panelists for their valuable addition. Ladies and gentlemen, time has arrived that we should be officially closing the third session. I would be requesting hereby Principal Secretary, Finance Department, Government of Odisha, Shri Shashwat Mishra, to please come and deliver the vote of thanks. Sir.
Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, respected Development Commissioner, distinguished panelists on the dais, distinguished Prabasi Bhartiyas and eminent guests of the dais, namaskar to all. I will not detain you for more than 2 minutes. We have come to the end of a very productive day, in fact the first day of the PBD celebration, and this enriching session was a befitting end to the first day's events. why does a finance secretary have to give you vote of thanks? It's because finance allows you to dream about Vikasit Odisha. And as Dr. Mishra said, that Odisha can catapult into a much higher league of states. Yes, we have the ability. We have the ability. As he has already stated, we are the least indebted state in Odisha, in the country. We are a revenue surplus state. We have adequate reserve funds for the bad times. God forbid any pandemic strikes again. Dr. Ella would not allow that. But if at all it happens or any such big dislocation happens, we have adequate reserve fund to take care of the eventualities. And as you know, almost all of you must be knowing, in 2004, Government of India came up with a FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. And we are the only state which has been FRBM compliant since 2005. All FRBM targets have been adhered to, and yet we are prospering, and we are growing, and we are revenue surplus. So it's a very disciplined financially managed state. So we therefore dare to dream of Vikasit Odisha by 2036. All suggestions and advices given by our distinguished panelists, Dr. Mishra, Mr. Abhinav Bindra, Padma Bhushan, Mr. Bruce Poe, Dr. Yella, and Mr. P.L. Harnad have been noted down. As DC ma'am has already spoken about we preparing a vision document. All your good suggestions and viewpoints would be taken care of while we finalize the vision document and bring necessary policy changes to give effect to those visions and goals. So with this, on behalf of Government of Odisha, first of all, I thank all the Prabasi Bharatiyas who have come from all parts of the globe to Odisha and to Bhubaneswar to attend this PBD celebration in large numbers. And this is the most appropriate time to visit Odisha. And as you must be seeing that Bhubaneswar especially and Puri and other tourist places have been already decked up to welcome you. And I'm sure that you would have a very memorable experience of visiting Odisha and visiting and attending this PBD in 2025. I thank all the 5 distinguished panelists for their valuable time and suggestions. We will be in touch with them as and when required. Some of them are like our in-house advisors like Mr. Bindra and Sri Harnad and others. So we'll be taking a lot of advices from you. Thank you very much. I thank DC ma'am for moderating this entire discussion. And last but not the least, I thank the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister who not only has a towering presence, but who is also a towering leader and who is in charge of the 2 most important departments of the state government, agriculture and power sector. And with your guidance and with your leadership, sir, we expect that our state would leapfrog into a very high altitude of growth. Thank you. And on behalf of the organizers, I thank everybody once again. Thank you.
I request our esteemed dignitaries present on the dais to please come forward and pose for a photograph. As promised, the session definitely acted as a melting pot of ideas, aspirations, and actionable strategies for the future of Odisha. Ladies and gentlemen, together we can make the vision of Viksit Odisha a reality. Let's continue this journey with hope, determination, and collaboration. I would be requesting all of you to please enjoy the tea break and gear up, because in the evening we have amazing performance, the authentic representation of Odisha's tradition and culture in the form of Odissi dance and other, you can say, classical song sessions. So I will be requesting everyone to gear up for the evening cultural session. Once again, thanking all our esteemed dignitaries, panelists, Deputy CM, DC ma'am, for your valuable addition to the 3rd and the last session of Day 1 PBD 2025. Once again, thanking all our vibrant diasporas and all the leaders for your participation. Please enjoy the tea break and gear up for cultural program. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.